Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Scott KRUSE. I want to thank the opportunity today that TSAP has provided me to share some of the research that I've done or some of the work that I've done in the area of RCM or Responsibility Cycle Management budgeting model. I realize there really isn't a whole lot new in the RCM world. It's existed now pretty solidly since 2000, so easily 24, 25 years. However, I wanted to share some of my experiences as it relates specifically to health professions and how our specific needs can fit into the RCM budget model. So I think very specifically we need to look at strategy and we need to look at budgeting and the strategic direction, the strategic initiatives that we set have to be deliberate toward the RCM. So in my mind, from my experience, I've seen that we have to look at what is RCM and how is it different from the incremental budgeting system that most universities have used since their inception. And then RCM, what's new in RCM? Well, in RCM, very few individuals or very few universities take on a pure RCM model. They do some sort of a hybrid RCM model. So it's a hybrid model of both RCM and incremental. And so there's a lot of resource sharing. There have to be some very specific decisions made on how to share some of the revenues that are generated. But the idea is to educate the faculty and the staff on where do our revenues generate, and then some of the decisions that we make every semester when we design courses and when we program them into through the registrar to teach them how some of our strategic initiatives play into RCM. So from my experience, we needed to establish a baseline. So we have to figure out where we are in the current model, the current budget model. And so that goes into understanding how the state of Texas does its formula funding. So we had to go in and look at specifically where do our revenues generate. Our university is a very tuition dependent university. Not all universities are in the state of Texas, but at least the state schools like ours has been. And that's very important to realize. If it's a private school, they have different models. Public schools have different models. Public schools like UT and A&M have different models, and then they are also written into the Constitution of the state, so they have a lot of other revenue sources, so they are not quite as dependent on tuition as others are. So I think the most important thing is to help get yourself educated, to go out to the website and just type in financial public higher education in Texas, financing public higher education in Texas. There's a legislative primer that is absolutely a solution for anybody who has difficulty going to sleep at night. There is, I don't know, about 150 pages in there, but nestled in those pages are a few nuggets, and one of those down here is this chart which shows those multipliers that are used in the formula funding. So we have to figure out where we are. At most universities use the same line for the entire College of Health Professions, and everybody in that college gets the same multiplier. However, there are others that may not do that. So it's important to realize what lines, what multipliers your university has been using under their current model. And so then the idea is to go in and calculate your net revenue. Are you currently able to pay even your salaries? I mean, just your direct expenses direct to the operation of teaching. So you go in and you do the formula funding model, and so I provided a little formula here showing what are the SCHs, or the semester credit hours, and how are those SCHs then programmed into weighted semester credit hours. Those include the multipliers. And then once you have your revenue, then you go into your salaries. And the way I've done this in the past is I've gone into the workload reports to show exactly who is paid what for what courses, for how many credit hours, etc. And then based on that, you can come up for an academic year whether you were net positive or negative in terms of net revenue. And so you can, Daniel, I just put in some notional numbers, the hashtags, if you were, as if the column was too short. However, from these numbers, if you are net positive or if you're net negative, then you then have a really good baseline. Now that you have that baseline, now that you know how much each program brings in revenue and how many students they service each year, you can do a very quick calculation on revenue per student under those current rules, those current models. That then gives you, you can then calculate for those programs that are not positive, and I've identified a couple here that are negative. You can identify how many more students they need to bring in just to break even, just to pay their direct expenses or their salaries. Once you have that, add about 10% to account for attrition, and now you've got a really good strategic goal for recruiting. From there, what I would do is I would then take the numbers that you've calculated so far and take them into a strategic planning session with all of your chairs and directors and say, okay, so under these new rules, what do we need to do for new program development, micro-credential development, because those can be a revenue stream. What do we need to do to increase our research productivity and bring in more high-dollar grants with indirect funding? And then how can I, as the Associate Dean, help you all march toward this new budget model in terms of faculty development and resourcing and dashboards. And then from there, you've got some really good strategic goals that can help you get down the road toward this transition of a new model. So that is really the work that I've done in this area. I just wanted to share. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity.